listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning. This is Heather Cole with Lodestar Solutions, and you are attending our dashboarding webinar to learn about how you can realize the benefits of business analytics through dashboarding. At this time, you should be able to see my screen. Right now, you see my slide up. If there is a problem and you cannot see it, please do me a favor and go into the GoToMeeting section and put it in chat and just put a little note out there saying that you can't see it, and we'll try and reconfigure settings a little bit. But we're going to try and get right on schedule today, so we'll start off. My name is Heather Cole, for those of you that don't know me. I am the president of Lodestar Solutions. And this is a webinar that we put together after listening to a number of clients and what they were really missing. They have these great tools. Some of you own Cognos, some of you own other competitive tools. But it's how do we actually realize the benefits of that? And that's what we're going to address today. So a little bit about Lodestar Solutions. We are an IBM Cognos premier reselling partner. So what that means is that we sell competitive quotes on both licenses for Cognos, support renewals, as well as a full range of service offerings. We are a certified woman-owned small business, and in our service offerings, we provide the full gamut of Cognos' business analytics suites, focusing a lot on the Cognos brand with TM1, Cognos Business Intelligence, Cognos 10 and 8, and earlier versions actually with Power Play and so forth. We also create a lot of customized on-site training. For those of you that have attended or have people that you want to attend IBM's training sessions, you'll notice that the timelines are not always the greatest. So we can help with creating customized training programs that we can either bring on-site or provide online. We also recommend that all clients record their end-user training, thus getting a lot more leverage out of that training when new hires come on board without using the team's resources. We also have consultants that can help implement from a technical perspective doing installs and upgrades. We host a lot of events. We have a lot of them coming up in the next couple weeks. If you are in Chicago, we have a bigger version of this small webinar that we'll do today, and we actually have a workshop on November 29th. We also have a planning to TM1 migration workshop in Chicago on the 29th in the morning. And then we have those same events in Miami and Tampa coming up in December. So if you're interested in more of our events, check out our website, lodestarsolutions.com. Hit the events tab at the top, and you'll see an updated listing of everything that we have going on. So a little bit about myself and why I'm qualified to talk to you about dashboarding. I've been in the software industry for over 20 years. I've been focusing in this space for actually, that number is old, probably about 14 years now, and being able to deliver solutions to clients to make better decisions. And so I've worked with clients of every shape and size, and believe it or not, a lot of the same challenges come around. How do we define our reports? How do we define the dashboard? And they are different, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So today we're going to get some standard definitions so that we know that everyone that's online has the same understanding, because some of you come from very different backgrounds. And then we're going to talk about why do organizations want business intelligence and dashboards. We'll talk about some of the dashboard killers that people do and don't realize they do that make it so nobody uses their dashboards. We'll talk about the different uses that you can use them for, the types, and then where do you focus and what are the keys to dashboarding success. So first off, let's talk about what are the definitions. And I apologize, periodically you may hear me swallow because I have a very bad vocal cord issue going on today from talking too much. So I'm going to try my best to save my voice. But we'll talk about what is business intelligence. So business intelligence, as a lot of you know, is identifying, extracting, analyzing data that gives you both the historical, what happened, what is happening, and ideally what's going to happen, what's our goal. If you don't have all three timelines, the past, the current, and the future, you're not really getting a good visual of your organization. An example of this would be if I said my return rate on this product, we had 100 returns last month. Is that good? Or is that bad? We don't really know unless we have the history of what was it last month? What was it this time last year? And then I have a benchmark to know whether that 100-item return is a good number if we're improving, or whether it's actually getting bigger and it's getting more detrimental to the organization. And then having that goal, so everybody needs to know where they're going, and having that predictive view, that plan, that forecast, or getting into predictive analytics of where do we want to go. We want to get that number down to 75 of this particular product. So you need all three pieces to really deliver a business intelligence solution. Otherwise, if you just have historic, that's a reporting solution. That's not intelligent. That's simply telling you where you've been. So let's talk about the purpose of a dashboard. A dashboard is to provide information to allow better decision making. And here's a common theme. If you don't think in this perspective, you need to start. A dashboard needs to make better decision on how to either make or save the company money. For those of you that fall in the IT world, a lot of times you don't take a step back and look at it from the financial perspective. Every organization today is focusing on two things: cash flow and profitability. If you go into the CFO's office and you talk about how can we increase profitability, they will love you. So start thinking about that when you're delivering a business intelligence solution, to give them tools to make or save the company money. So what is a data warehouse? A lot of different definitions float out there with regard to a data warehouse, but basically it's a data staging integrated area to access data from multiple data sources. So if you have a couple different systems out there, all with customer, but each system may have a slightly different number for that same customer, our data warehouse will allow us to give a common number for that particular customer ID. Now, a data warehouse typically is encompassing many different areas of the business, from sales and inventory, financial information, all of it together. So that's a very big undertaking. Most of our clients have to start small and show some incremental successes, and that is why they leverage a data mart. A data mart is a subset of a data warehouse that is usually oriented to a specific business line, team, process. An example would be sales or a financial data mart. And if designed properly, these are kind of like puzzle pieces where you have the financial data mart and then you can connect it into, let's say, your inventory data mart and then your customer sales information and so forth. So they kind of piece together ultimately long-term to create that data warehouse. But you definitely need to start somewhere. Think big and start small. So what is the typical goal of a BI project? So take a minute, think to yourself, what is the goal of our BI project? So this is where I'm going to tell you it should always be to provide information to help the business make or save the company money, focusing back on profitability and cash flow analysis. So if we can think of ways that we can either increase sales of our more profitable items, if we can cut costs, those are all areas that we want to focus on. And then we'll teach you in a minute how you evaluate that to risk and whether you have information. What is a KPI? A KPI is a key performance indicator. They're few in number and they are aligned with the strategic goals of the organization. When we give this workshop, I always ask everyone, how many of you specifically know the strategic goals of your organization today? And maybe one or two hands will go up. So I encourage you all to go back to your organizations, ask, what are our top strategic goals and what are the KPIs that we're measuring? And a lot of times you won't know the answer. But that's a good place to start, is that how do we might know our strategic goals and how do we measure that to see if we're on target to make those? Now, if you say, I have hundreds of KPIs, guess what? Those are not KPIs. Those are performance measures. And a performance measure is just that. It's measuring the results against the target, but they're more operational, tactical in nature. So they might be the rate of returns of a product. That might be a performance measure. It is clearly not a strategic initiative. That might be something bigger. So now that we have some common definitions, let's talk about why organizations want dashboards. So if you can stop, think for a moment, stop multitasking. Yes, I caught you. And think about why organizations want dashboards. Why do you guys want it? One of the biggest ones is they want decision-making based on fact, not gut feel. A lot of organizations that have an older workforce do a lot of gut feel. Well, the problem is when that workforce retires, that knowledge, that gut feel instinct will not be there in the younger workforce. We have to actually have it based on facts. We want to identify negative trends and correct them very quickly. If we see that we keep selling a certain part and we're completely out of inventory all the time, we need to address that because that's a hot seller. We need to either increase our price because we might not be making enough money on it, or we need to identify those inventory problems that we're having. We want to align our strategy with our goals at a more operational level. So we want to be able to tie that and take that strategic initiative that the executives have, be able to figure out what those KPIs are to measure, and then boil those KPIs down to smaller incremental parts in the performance measures. We want to improve employee efficiency. This can be a big one in a lot of companies because a lot of companies are guilty of what I call data chasing. Here's an example. We see an anomaly in the dashboard, and we call it a dashboard. It's really a sexy report, but there's an outlier. There's something that dips. Maybe our sales in a certain region completely dropped. So the CFO says, what's going on there? So if you don't have drill-down capabilities in your reports, what happens? Everyone goes into data chasing mode. Like 5 people run off. They do data dumps from your source system. They throw it in Excel. They start massaging the data to figure out what's happening. That is not a good use of time. You need to design the system so that it can account for those drill paths that we want and make it interactive so that we can analyze the data right there from the dashboard. We want to reduce training of time it takes to train team members. So if we have a standardized reporting structure and we have all our information, all our reports, our management, our operational reports, all in Cognos, for example, then we can teach them how to use that one tool instead of what a lot of organizations have. They have a little BO, they got a little Crystal, they got a little Excel, they got a little Cognos, and they have to train all these different team members in these different areas. So we want to streamline that, get them onto one platform. We want one version of the truth. We don't want to be sitting in a meeting, all have different numbers for our sales for last month. That, again, throws people into a data chasing mode. Like, why are our numbers different? And you waste half an hour in the meeting trying to figure out whose numbers are actually right. And the big one for those of us that come up out of finance is more time for analysis. We did not go to school to be data chasers. We went because we're highly analytical and we love numbers. We like to analyze the numbers. So if you can eliminate the data chasing and give people the proper tools to analyze, they will make better decisions. And the winner, as I spin it, is to make or save the company more money. If you want to create a new dashboarding initiative in your organization, maybe you're in the IT department, the best way to do it is to show the ROI, the return on the investment. So if you can prove that you will help save or make the company more money, you're significantly going to increase the probability that the CFO's office will get you funding and budget for that project. Now at Lodestar, we actually have a little return on investment spreadsheet that can help you build your case internally to get funding for projects. So let's talk about BI dashboard killers. Okay? There's one big one that is the biggest dashboard killer, and that is incorrect data. So here I'm going to give you my Chinese restaurant analogy. So if you've ever gone, let's say it's Friday night, you go out, you take your spouse out to a nice dinner at this brand new Chinese restaurant, and it's a great meal. You get home only to find out that you have food poisoning, and you are crippled over, stomach cramps, you know, very, very sick. The next morning, you finally feel better, but what do? You tell everyone you know that you went to that restaurant and got deathly ill, right? You tell 2 friends, or they tell 2 friends, and you sing out to everyone that this is a terrible place to go, don't go there, right? And bad data is the same thing. If I'm in a report, in a meeting, and I've generated some reports and printed out some of my my dashboard information, or maybe I have it on my iPad and I'm in my meeting, and I find out that it has the incorrect data, and I make a statement as if it's fact about that data, unbeknownst to me that that data is wrong, I'm going to get embarrassed. I may get fired if it's a big enough piece of information. And so I will never rely on that again. I won't trust it. I will think I have food poisoning on my data. So the only way to fix that is one thing. What would make you go to that Chinese restaurant again? Yes, you're thinking it, an under new management sign posted out front. Then you'd be actually willing to go back to that restaurant and try it again. So if you have this problem, and a number of you do, and you know who you are, figure out how you're going to fix the problem, number one. Number two, put out the under new management sign. Address the problem, be very candid that you've had a problem in the past, but it's being repaired, and people will come and use your dashboards again. If dashboards have a lot of manual entry to update the data because the data pieces that you need are not in another source system, that can cause delays in the dashboard, that can cause inaccuracies because you manual rekeying. So try to automate that as much as possible. If you have bad performance, and this we see a lot, we get clients that have worked with other people over the years, and they come to us and they say, you know, we have these reports and the queries take an hour and a half, 2 hours to run, and people get frustrated and they don't use them. Can you help us? And they'll say, you know, Cognos isn't working right. And guys, guess what? It's not Cognos. Most of the time, what we find is that if you really look under the covers in that report, it's as if you're trying to travel from Chicago to LA. And instead of taking a direct route, you're going from Chicago to New York to Miami to Minneapolis to Oklahoma and then finally to LA. And your queries are running and running and running. And so you need to look at how those reports are designed and make sure your power users understand your data. Dashboards are inflexible, meaning you can't change them because your business will change, and you need to be able to change with the business and do so easily and empower the end users to do that. We'll show you a little bit of the Cognos platform for dashboarding today, and we'll show you how you can literally drag pieces off of it and put something else there. So if my primary focus today is on sales of a certain part number, I may look at that, and tomorrow I may want returns of that. I may want something completely different, and I need the power to change that. If they're too complex, and they're hard to understand, maybe rolled out to your sales force and you have all these analytics that are, you know, they just want to know how many parts they sold, what the profit is, and what their commission is, right? So make sure they're simple to use for your users. If you haven't trained people, we see this one all the time, guys, training, it can increase your ROI in your business intelligence hugely. It doesn't have to cost that much. We are big proponents of recording training, editing it, make it very clean, and putting it out on a shared drive or having remote access so as you hire new people, they can come in. And make sure that maybe you have updated quarterly training where you add a new webinar out there for people to see new functionality or things that they may need to know. If the dashboard does not reflect the needs of the business will not use it. They will dump things to Excel and create their own reports. So communicate with them. The key to dashboarding success is a great relationship between the center of excellence of Cognos or whatever system you use, hopefully it's Cognos, and the business. If you have one of those companies where there's a little rift between IT and maybe finance, go have lunch with them, buy them pizza, buy them Starbucks. Go sit down and talk to them and say, I want your ideas on what I can deliver to you to help you make better decisions. If your dashboards do not have drillable capabilities, they are not dashboards, they are sexy reports, meaning you might have some great pie charts and a map of the United States and all this in your report, but you don't give them a drill path or a way to analyze the data. It's just a sexy report because they still will bounce back into data chasing. If your data lacks hierarchy or business rules, an example of this is some of our clients we run into have all their data at the SKU level, you know, by product, by actual SKU level for that product. But they want to be able to see how many tents they sold, not just a certain model tent, but actually a higher area. If your data does not have that today, I won't have those hierarchies in my business intelligence system. So it's a great opportunity for the business to actually step up to the plate and realize that they own the data. IT are keepers of our data. They're the protectors of the data. The business really owns the data. We've had clients come to us and they're like, you know, IT is not giving us reports because we don't have these up and down drill paths and we can't get to the high level detail and drill down. And I asked them if they've ever, the business that is, if they've ever defined that. Have they ever sat down with IT and said, I want these to roll up to here? Because that's not IT's decision, that's the business's decision. So if you have that, have a candid conversation with the business and say, guys, I'm here to help you, but you have to help yourself. If an item is not actionable, there's nothing you can do about it, and people don't use it for decision making, don't put it on your dashboard. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not something we should worry about. Get it off my dashboard. So let's talk about the uses of dashboards. The first use is to monitor your business, right, to see how we're doing against our plan. And that's really important to know, that you need to know where you're going. You need to have that forecast or that plan data in there, because otherwise, if you go to train for a 5K, you say, hey, I'm going to get off my couch and I'm going to go start running. And if you don't set a goal to run a 5K, you just say, I'm going to start running. Or you say, I'm going to get my body so I can run 3 miles. If you don't have any goals, how likely are you to get off that couch? The business is the same way. If you don't set goals for the business, they don't know how they're accomplishing it. And people are motivated by accomplishments. So make sure they have that. We use it to report, to analyze, to tie strategy KPIs on down to performance measures so that we can have it all the way through the organization and everybody is in line. Have you ever been in a rowboat? Let's say all of us were sitting in a rowboat, and I blindfolded all of you. And I said, okay, and we plugged all your ears, and we said, okay, row. What would happen? The boat probably wouldn't really go anywhere. We might end up spinning in circles depending on where the muscle guys are, but we're not going to go forward. And that's the same way with if you do not tie your strategy all the way down to your performance measures, then you're going to be rowing the boat in circles. Now, let's say we take off the blindfolds, we put a drummer out in the front, and we say, this is where we're going straight forward, there's the finish line, and we have a cadence, the drummer's hitting the drum, and we all are paddling at the same time. Also, we're going to go flying through the water to our goal, right? So that's what you want to align your organizations to. You want to make sure that they are directly in line with that rowboat. Okay, so let's talk about the types of dashboards. There's 3 main types, at least I break them down. Other people have different definitions. The first one is the strategic. This is the alignment of the organization. This is where we as an organization are going. The next area is kind of step down a level, and these are key projects and initiatives. These are the tactical area of our dashboard. So what are those key projects? And then we take it down a step lower to operational, and these are the business activities or processes. So let's give an example of this. If my strategic goal for the organization is to increase sales by 10%, that would be easily measured, right? We look at last year's sales, we look at this year's sales, and say, hey, we're on target, we're not on target. Now, a tactical kind of step down from that would be more aligned to something that we can measure more at a granular level. So I want to increase my sales of product X in Europe by 20% in this certain time period. And I want to launch this new product in December. And I believe those steps will get me to my strategic goals. Because we typically know if we just do what we're doing today, we're not going to increase our sales. We might stay flat in this economy. We might go down a little bit. But typically, it's not like suddenly the phone starts ringing off the wall. So we have to do something different. That's our tactical. And then we'll take it a step lower and go down to the operational of that same strategic initiative. Let's boil it down. And one of the things we might want to look at is the number of returns of product X in a given period of time. And this, you will need to look at our actual returns in relationship to our target or in relationship to previous months or prior year numbers. So we need to have that historical view, the current view, and the future view of where we're going. So that gives you an example. Another example might be more an HR model to say, we want to increase our employee retention by 90%. So how are we going to do that? A tactical approach might be to implement a profit sharing, or hire an internal recruiter that helps to make sure that when we recruit, we get people that fit in our culture very well. An operational view of this might be to actually look at the performance measure of employee retention rate, and we might want to start evaluating employee satisfaction scores and identify if we have some outliers there that we need to address. I had one client do a dashboard where they had and they looked at HR information to see when the attrition rate was happening. And they found out that after between 3 and 5 years, they kept losing people. And when they drilled down to the details, they found out they lost a lot of people in the same department in 3 to 5 years. There was a constant trend that like a bunch of them would leave in that time period in that department. What they found out, they then drilled down and actually went to the PDF of the exit interviews of those individuals. And they saw a constant theme that people were leaving because they did not see a path for growth in the organization. What they decided to do is they decided to train an individual on that particular manager on how to encourage people and to help them roadmap their growth. And that, by training that manager to communicate that to their people, they reduced their rate of people leaving in that 3 to 5 year time frame. So you can see how these operational views can actually help your organization not lose that knowledge base. So what are the keys to dashboarding success? The first one is strategic alignment of the organizational goals. So first step here is, what are the goals, right? If you don't know what the goals are, it's really hard to be aligned. So what business questions need to be answered in relationship to that strategic goal? If we want to grow sales 10%, what needs to be answered, and that is, how are we going to do it, and what are the measures in relationship to that? And then what are the resulting actions that should be taken if there's an outlier? And outliers can be good and bad. We might suddenly see this total increase in a certain product or service we're selling. And we might realize, hey, there's something to this. Suddenly, we're selling a lot of training services. What's going on? And we realize that, a lot of classes aren't given when people need them. So we're going to increase our offerings in that area and hope to satisfy that need even more. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. I want to emphasize it again, KPIs versus measures. KPI are small in number. Getting people to define this is often challenging. The thing you have to know, it's kind of like if you're trying to write a novel or a book. You've got to sit down and put something on paper. So start somewhere. Make some recommendations if you don't have these today and say, here's what I think they are. Would everybody agree with me? Anybody have some other thoughts? And get that communication process going. And then boil that down. Once you understand what those are, boil that down to the measures below that will lead up to those key performance indicators. Now, when defining a measure, you must be specific. If they're generic in nature, we can't measure them, okay? If I would ask you, how are you feeling, I might get a million different answers. If I say, on a scale of 0 to 10, give me the number how you are feeling today, that's something I can analyze. I can compare that to last week, to the week before that, and so forth. We need to know that these are actionable. If you tell me you're only feeling a 2, what can I do to help you feel better? Maybe you're hungry. Maybe we need to feed you. So what are the actions that can happen to that measure? Know your audience. Understand how they think. Not everybody is off the charts analytical. They may need some things presented in different ways. And that's a key in being able to have the different options for them to see that same information. Now, there's studies done saying how people respond so much more to graphical representations, pictorials of that data. If you just give them numeric data, they're not going to see the trends naturally. Some of us are very analytical, that bounces out at us, but we're kind of the anomalies. That's why United Way and all those charities have the little thermometer of how we're doing. There's where we want to be, and it motivates people to give more money. So make sure that you know your audience and you're giving that information in a format that they can relate to. It must be measurable, and that measure must have a calculation. You'd be surprised how many different definitions of sales you can get in one organization. If you ask a financial or an accounting person, they will tell you it's not a sale until I recognize the revenue. If you ask a salesperson, so some of them may say the first time someone says they're going to buy something, but typically they will go with the time I get that purchase order in my hands. So make sure that you understand what a sale is. Other people will define a sale after returns and allowances. So make sure you have a common definition that is agreed to throughout the organization. And then always, if you can, some of them you can't, have a target for that measure. So what are our goals? What do we want it to be? So a lot of our clients will come to us and say, you know, I love cognitive dashboarding capability, but I don't even know where to start. So let's talk about how you define your focus. The first step is to define your areas of opportunity. What are your risk factors? So areas of opportunity would be like sales or financial information or budget information, and where can it help the organization? So you might come up with, hey, we have marketing and HR and you know, different, maybe if you're a manufacturer, production, and then you want to look at that area of opportunity in relationship to the risk factors. Do you have the data today in a system that it is readily accessible? Is the business ready for change? Are they embracing it? Do they feel that there's pressure there and they need help? Does that business area embrace technology? In some of these manufacturers, technology is not, they don't like to use computers. Be realistic about that. And then how does that area of the business work with IT? Do they work well? Do they communicate well? Or is there a slight rift between them? Those are all risk factors. The biggest risk factor there is, do I have the data and is it reliable? The next thing you're going to look at in that area of opportunity is, what is the impact of this area to provide that area better decision making to the organization? So how will it save the organization money or make the organization money? An example could be simply sales, right? Sales is always an easy area to start because we can see a very quick ROI on making sure people are selling our most profitable products. Another area might be marketing. If we can leverage our campaigns and make sure we're targeting the right people and getting results from that, that's going to help us make or save the company money. There's also a third kind of quality here that you may want to consider, and that doesn't really affect money. Well, sometimes it does, and that is, how is it aligned to the strategic goals? An example here is, if our goal, our strategic goal is to become a green company, we want to be more earth-friendly, that may not make us money, and that may not save us money. It may actually cost us money, but ultimately it's going to our public perception, our goodwill, all of that. So let's talk about risk factors a little bit more. The biggest risk factor is always data. I've already told you my Chinese restaurant story, so let's look at the integrity of the data. If it's bad, take action. Under new management, signs need to go up after you fix the problem, of course. Make sure there's hierarchy of the data. If there's not, give a little sample. We once took a client, and we gave them our training sessions, and the people loved it. They were like, this is great. We can drill down on product and stuff. And then we showed a little sample with their data that was as flat as a pancake. And they're like, well, why can't we drill down? And we're like, because you are the business and you haven't defined those hierarchies. The IT department had been asking the business to help them define the categories for months. And by just showing them that information, it was like immediately they said, how about we meet Wednesday? So make sure you have that communication. If they can't understand it, show them what it does to your reports. Make sure you have accessibility of that data. It's not in some hosted environment somewhere where you can't get to it. And make sure you have agreed upon data definitions. So here's my little grid. Now that you've looked at your risk factors and you've looked at the different opportunities and you looked at how it impacts the organization by saving or making it money, we're going to grid it. So here's a simple little chart that we can create, and we're going to look at our risk factor. And at the bottom there, you see my risk, and on the left quadrant, we have high risk, meaning we don't have the data, the business isn't ready for change, they don't want to help us, they're not working friendly with IT. And on the right, we have a low risk, meaning we've got the data, it's clean, it's great, the people are ready, we're all excited, we work as a team. And then we look at the impact to the organization. So if it has a big impact, typically you see sales and finance in the top two to the organization, that's going to be an area of focus. So we have low risk, high reward, upper right quadrant, that's where we want to focus. And I'll literally take this chart and I'll say, okay, if we do some financial dashboards, it goes here, and I'll plot it into my quadrants. If we do a sales one, we'll plot it here, and we'll create this, and we'll have everyone agree to it. And then we said that's where we start. So you want incremental wins. The key to getting the funding, to get the resources, is to have incremental wins and set. Here's the travel expectations and over-deliver. So don't make promises that you don't think you can keep. If you think you can deliver this project in 8 weeks, tell them you need 10 weeks and deliver it in 8. You will look like a hero. So the keys to successful dashboarding is a solid data architecture underneath. You've got to have that good data. If you don't, take a step back. Let's fix it. That is time well spent. And for those of you that are saying, hey, we don't really have a data mart, we don't have a data warehouse, if you already own TM1, a lot of our clients use that kind of as a poor man's data warehouse or data mart to stage the data until that data mart or data warehouse gets built by IT. So you can use that. Make sure you communicate with all the teams that that's the strategy and that there's a migration path to get into a full data warehouse or data mart. It must relate to the business needs, and it must be flexible. Our goal is self-service. We don't want to put the burdens on IT to have to change reports and create reports 100 times. Give it to the user, let them interact with it. But I can tell you, when you move to Cognos 10 and you're using Cognos Insight, well, they keep changing the name. We now call it Workspace, but the former Business Insight, the dashboarding capabilities, what you want to do is make sure that data is really solid, because over the years, some of us did a little duct tape and super glue in our report studio, and we did that because we could. And as a result, when we kind of did some quick formulas and stuff in our reports, when we get to a more dynamic environment of self-service, you're going to feel that duct tape and super glue doesn't hold as well. So we recommend you fix things at the data layer in that data warehouse or data mart so that it presents itself very seamlessly throughout your reporting structure. Okay, so this is where I get into my little tricks here. And in order to align your internal teams, this is a method that really works well. Don't build in Excel or build in Cognos and say, these are our prototypes, what do you think? Because you're going to be taking a lot of time building that, and the business will almost always say, well, that's not what I told you. So let's create what we call storyboards. And a storyboard is just that. It's like, an architect. If an architect is going to build a new school in your area, they have a little model with little people walking down the sidewalk, right? And they show it to everyone saying, this is what we are going to do, and making sure everybody agrees to it and they buy into it. Well, we're going to do that with paper. And we're going to create some storyboards of what we have. To do this, you're going to need the big 3M or whatever sticky flip charts you can find. The reason why we use the sticky ones is because you're probably going to work on this in a conference room, and you're probably going to get kicked out of that conference room at some point. So we want to be able to roll them up and take them to another conference room, stick them on the wall, and keep moving. You're going to need some magic markers. We're going to need some removable glue dots. A lot of you are like, what? So these are things you can pick up at Michael's. If you've ever bought a bottle of hand lotion and you've seen advertisements stuck to the outside of it, and it has that little gooey, like it's almost like gummy dot that's sticking that piece of paper onto it, that's a removable glue dot. And we're going to use that to paste images to simulate what our dashboards are going to look like. We're then going to print out a bunch of images that we can get out of the Cognos solution for our dashboards. Pie charts, bar charts, graphs of the United States, whatever you want, let's print images of them. And then we're going to get some large Post-it notes. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the large Post-it note and we're going to define a measure. So and they should be tied to a strategy. So assuming you know your strategy, let's use ours, increase the organization's profitability by 10%. So one of the measures that we're going to do this, and we saw this when we got down to the operational view, was the return rate of products. So our measure is return rate, and we write this on our Post-it note. Our audience is sales, and we're going to put a brief description, the number of returns by product by month. Our drillable action is to drill at the reason for the return. So you put all of this on your Post-it note. The next thing is we clearly define the measure, and this one is easy. It's the number of returns by month by product. If your description is sales, for example, you need to make sure that measure says sales before returns and allowances or sales after returns and allowances. However you're going to define that, make sure you're very specific. If this is a budgeted item, so we do have a goal for our return rate, go ahead and put a yes in here so we know that. Not everything's going to have that. And later on, we'll use the relevance number, so we'll leave that blank for now. So you'll fill out these Post-it notes. You can fill out a bunch of them and just stick them on a piece of paper for now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to organize them by the audience. So I'm going to have one flip chart that has sales, one that has finance, one that has HR. Sometimes you're going to have a measure that is applicable to more than one audience. Just copy it and put it on both charts. And this is where we're starting to define what's available for those dashboards. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a storyboard. This is a pictorial of your dashboard. So we're going to take those printed images of the different charts and graphs that we printed out, and you can take them from the web. You can go to see demos and I use Snagit. It's a great little tool that allows you to cut part of an image out and then create a JPEG out of it. And you may want to print multiples of the same thing. So here's an example on my pictures. I printed 2 gauges because I'm going to use gauges in different ways. And then cut them into smaller components if you printed them all out so that you can use them. We're then going to place the images that we think best would be used to measuring for identifying that particular measure. And we're going to put it on the flip chart. So we might say return rate is going to be a gauge. So that we can see where it was last year to this month. And so that I take that print image of the gauge, put the removable glue dots on the back, and stick it right onto my Post-it, or onto my big flip chart. You might want to have multiple images for each measure because that's going to give the end users, remember, we want to think like their brain. Some of us are numbers people. We just like to see numbers. Other people want to see a graphical representation of that. So make sure you give them multiple options. Then we're going to create the actual picture. So we're going to take a new flip chart, new piece of paper. We're going to put it right next to our other one, and we're going to arrange the images on the flip chart to provide the visual arrangement. In this particular example, you see I have a drop-down menu for, this is a professional services example. I have a drop-down for an actual person, a timekeeper in this case, for a law firm, and it's showing us their billings. It's showing us their billable hours in a gauge, and it's showing us some statistical data that is also color-coded with conditional formatting. And it shows me that particular timekeeper's top clients. So you can experiment with this. Remember, the removable glue dots allow us to take them off and onto the piece of paper. Once you define what you think looks good, draw a line underneath that, and on the bottom, put other images, like pie charts and so forth, that could be used or swapped out. And you're going to talk to the end users like, hey, would you like to see this as a gauge, or would you rather us put a pie chart? And so those are where we're looking at these. For those of you familiar with Cognos 10 and Business Workspace, formerly known as Business Insight, you will know that these are just widgets, and we're simulating the ability to drag and drop and change those widgets out. So the next step is to place another flip chart next to your storyboard and label it data. Now, number your storyboards, because, again, you're going to get kicked out of that conference room. You're going to have to roll up the storyboards. You're going to have to leave. So if you have your HR dashboard there, put a 1 on it, put a 1 next to your data for the HR dashboard on that separate piece, and then you're going to document all the data points you believe are required to calculate that measure. And really think about it. And you also want to identify where you believe that data resides today. Is it in your data warehouse? Is it in your ERP system? Is it sitting in an Excel file? Is it in a wiki? Where is it? And then if you're in the business and doing this, you're going to validate that with IT. So you're going to sit down with them and say, this is where I think it is. Is that the best place? And is that the place going forward? A lot of you have a lot of initiatives going. You might be changing out your ERP system. We need to know that later on we're going to have to just change where we get that data from. So the next step is to build your team. And to do this, you definitely want to have an executive sponsor. For those of you that have been challenged with getting an executive sponsor, Lodestar has recently added some new service offerings that are business analytics coaching for the executives. And what we do is we help educate them on what they really can get out of business analytics and what they need to do to align the internal resources to be successful. So all that stuff you guys have been griping on, the executives don't, empower me the right way. We kind of help educate them on those challenges to help you get the resources and access to the information that you need. We're coming out with some workshops on this, and we also provide one-on-one coaching. Areas, you need to have an area expert for each target area and audience. So if this is HR, you've got to have someone that's very knowledgeable about your HR department. If you just hired a guy or gal and she knows tons about Cognos, that's great, but we still need the area expert, someone that's been with your organization for at least 2 years that understands who to go to when they have certain questions. A newly hired person is not going to have those lines of connection. You must involve IT if you're on the business side. IT, we love you guys. We need to work better with you. We try to communicate that to the business all the time. And we need you because you are the experts in the data. We are not going to rely on you. We're going to try and be self-sufficient, but we need you at strategic times. And in the implementation, we'll make sure that we communicate that. And then ultimately, you need a dashboarding project manager. Who's your champion to make sure that you have access to the right information and to the executives that can clearly articulate the strategy? When you go to deploy, there's a couple different methods. You can deploy horizontally, so you can start in one division and then add other divisions on, or you can start at top down, so start at the executive level and then move your way down into sales and marketing and HR and so forth. To get buy-in, you must arrange a meeting with an advisory panel. Find those naysayers in the organization. You know who they are. Those people are always griping. Get them on your team because you want their feedback early. And by engaging them as an advisor with periodic checkpoints, they can't say bad things about the project. They are part of it. So they're going to actually champion it for you because they're typically very vocal people to begin with. Present them the storyboards, walk them through it, validate it, ask their opinion. And here's a consulting trick, everyone, is sometimes you need to ask questions that you already know the answers to because it allows the business users to feel like you really are listening to them. So don't only ask the questions that you don't know the answer. Sometimes you got to ask the questions of things that you have the answer to open those lines of communication. Collect the feedback. Understand where you can make changes, set realistic expectations, and modify as necessary. So let's show a little demonstration of our show here, and I'm going to end my slideshow. And I'm going to start my Cognos. Sorry, I just clicked the wrong thing. I don't want to go to TM1 Live. I want to go to my BI. Cancel that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and log into my system. And I have this coming to the main Cognos portal page, Cognos Connection. Many of you are familiar with this. You'll notice that I have my home area. I can create my workspace, so that would be my business insight. I can install and launch my desktop workspace. This is Cognos Insight. I know they have terrible names. They all have Insight in them, and that's why they're starting to change some of these. So I'm going to go to My Workspaces. And this is where I can come in and create a new one, or I can open an existing. We're going to start with opening an existing one. And we'll just go into, let's go into some sales information. And I'm going to go into my Business Insight. Now, we can have this set up so that as soon as someone walks in, that they click, that it automatically defaults to that particular dashboard when they log into Cognos. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our Executive Sales Analytics dashboard here. And you'll notice that it's going ahead and loading. It's going out to that data layer, looking at what's new, and building it for me. And this is a good little example because it's got a lot of different components to it. On the top, we can see a little trend of our revenue by territory. We can look at, we have the variances, we have the cost, and units ordered, and so forth. This is set by certain filters. If we have the security clearance, we can actually change this filter. And over here on the right, we can actually add a comment. So if you have notes that you want to put on this, like you normally do on a printed report, you scribble your handwriting, here we can do it now within the report itself. On the right, you can see that I have filters by quarter. So I have a gauge here that I can say, wait, I want to change this data by simply clicking it and dragging it over. The mouse doesn't want to go here. It will automatically update my report components, which are widgets, to reflect that new time period that I selected for. If I move it back, you'll see that those components are updated as well. Additionally, I have the ability to interact with this data by selecting filters. Now, many of you in the past may have had 4 or 5 reports that showed this information. You may have had a report that you built for Asia Pacific, a report for Europe, a report for North America, and so forth. Now what I can do is I can say, you know what, I want the end user to be able to create a filter for themselves, and they go ahead and they click it, and the data is updated to reflect what they're choosing. You'll notice here I have a couple different widgets as well that show my revenue trending. I can flip this and look at it so my months are on the other axis if I want by simply clicking on it. I can come over here and do more with it, provided I have security. I can focus on this particular report by maximizing it. So there's a lot of things that I can do. You'll notice I can even print this to an PDF. I can export it to Excel. I can resize to fit this. So I have a lot of capabilities on what I want to do with that particular component. On the right here, I have access to other dashboards by simply clicking on the link, and it will open up another dashboard. And on the bottom here, that we're seeing our data, and we can actually drill into this and go down to more granular level. I can also say, you know, I don't like looking at the numeric values. I want a pie chart of this information. And simply choosing it, it can give me a pie chart. That's not the best view of it. I can also change the kind of color formatting of this information as well. We're going to go back to our lists here. And depending on where I have it, I can put comments on a particular cell area as well. I can drill up, I can drill down, and change that data. So you can see I'm interacting with it. And I'm not relying on IT to build me 500 different reports to do the same thing. Now, as an end user, I can modify this. If I slide way over to the right, you can barely see out of this little tiny arrow that allows me to modify my particular dashboard as I see fit. So I can actually pull more content from here. I can drag and drop things off. So if I click on this, I may want to click on this and say, you know what, I want to remove this particular item from my workspace. So I can simply remove it. If it warrants me, yes, I now have a blank space. I can go out there to my folders if I have information, or I can go to my public folders. I could go to a different area and customize my dashboard. So I might go to my Business Insight. I may grab another area. I can drag and drop it into that space, or I can create another box. So down here at the bottom, I say Toolbox, and I might want to put an image in there, or my inbox. I can put a text box. Let's just do a text box. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to drop it right there. and I'm going to go ahead and type new text box. So I have complete customization of this, and then I can go to Style and Layout, and I can fit all my widgets to the window. It goes ahead and really realigns everything. I can start to play with my style and so forth. Completely customizable grabbing components. For those of you that are power users and you do a lot in Report Studio, this may change how you're building reports today. You may want to break these down into smaller components so the end user can grab them. Because right now, if I go grab something and try and drag it on, and I have the complete dashboard there, it's going to give everything instead of the little smaller component. So think about how you build your reports. So that's a little bit about how we can work with Cognos Business Insight, also known as Workspace. At this time, we're just about to wrap it up here, so I want to make sure we have a couple minutes for questions. If you have any questions, could you please enter them either into the chat area or into the question area at this time, and I will do my best to answer them. If I don't know the answer, I always reserve the right to have a lifeline and to follow up with all of you at a later date. So we'll give you a couple minutes here and go ahead and enter those questions in. I'm not seeing any questions. That means I answered everybody's questions today. That's fabulous. If you liked what you see today, can you please give us feedback? We are creating a lot of great educational content. A lot of it is going to be able to be customized for our clients. If you want to join us for a bigger version of what we did today, where you learn a lot more tips and tricks, we have a number of events, like I said, coming up. We have one, actually, let me pull up my, my website here. On our website, a couple of things I want to point out to you too. We have our events page. These are where our events are being posted. They're being updated all the time. We have this destination dashboarding, a bigger, it's a half-day event on this topic. For those of you that are in Chicago or Miami or Tampa, please join us for those. And then we also added a new section because we kept having clients ask us how they learn more. So we've created a book section that has a number of our recommended reading. These are books that when we have new consultants, we actually put them through quite the paces and we have them read a lot of books. So there's a couple great ones. There's one, the Cognos Business Intelligence 10 Official Guide. Feel free to go to our book place. We're going to be updating this regularly. And if you have book recommendations, let us know. We want to make sure this is a collaborative area for you guys to come in and get more information. So at this time, Heather, if you don't have any questions, oops.
Heather, there are a few questions posted.
Okay, let me see why mine's not showing. Bear with me 1 second. It has to do with my screens, guys. So it says, how do you go about sharing your workspace with others? That's a couple different answers to that question. If you built your workspace and you did it with Cognos Business Insight, you can actually do that through security, as well as there is a way. Let me flip back over here. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Log back in. Now, the reason why I said there's a couple different answers to this is if you are using Cognos Insight is the desktop version. If you guys are not familiar with Cognos Insight, we have a webinar on this too. Many of you that are Cognos users already have licenses for this. It is like a TM1 Lite as well as a little bit of dashboarding, and those can actually be promoted up into full-fledged enterprise Cognos. So that's some great things. The other thing, if you're using Cognos Insight, no, sorry, I can't talk and get my, if you're using Cognos Insight, you should join the Analytics Zone. We'd be happy to send you a link to join it. There are some great examples out there. They have webinars. In fact, Lodestar is hosting one with them. So you can even share, I wanted to show you this, is an email link to this. So, and remember, it does go through Cognos security, guys. So what will happen is if they don't have access to see that information, they're not going to see it. So if you try and send them an HR workspace and they don't have access to see that data, they're not going to be able to. The other good thing about it, if those of you that have Team 1 and BI are very tightly integrated. They share security. Again, if you set security levels in Team 1, those will pass through to UBI as well. So another way to do it is to actually email a link to someone so that they can open that as well. You can create a dashboard and you can save it. If we go via Save As, you'll notice that I can save this in my public folders or my folders. So if I create it and it's just mine, then it's only there for my consumption. If I put it in a public folder, then we can open it up to others as well. So hopefully that answered your question about sharing. Let's see. My screen doesn't want to see. The question is, will the slides be available? If you simply send me an email, we can provide you the slides. All we ask is, we spend a lot of time putting this content together. It is for the benefit of our client base and people that are using Cognos. We just ask to let, for professional courtesy that you don't go supply this information to some other partner you work with. But yes, we can make the slides available for you. Just send us an email, and I'll put my contact information up on the screen in a minute so that we can make sure that you guys can email me that. We currently do not have a recording of this webinar. Actually, it's because my voice doesn't hold out, but we will be creating one. We'll probably have someone else give it so that they can have a better tone to it. But look for that coming out in the future. And I think, Kathy, did I hit every question? I think I did. If
yes.
you have another question that I did not answer, please raise your hand.
I'm not seeing any other questions.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes our event today. Let me throw up on the screen my contact information. So I'm at the top here. For those of you, I kind of float back and forth between Florida and Chicago. I will be presenting the events in Chicago on the 29th, so I'd love for you guys to come join us. And, you know, if you're not from Chicago and you want an excuse to come to Chicago then, it's a great time to go Christmas shopping. So hopefully you guys will come join us. Please go to our website, go to the events tab. If you did not recently receive an invite to those events, basically just send me an email, say, hey, I want to get in this. We'll make sure, Kathy will make sure you get registered. If you have feedback on this presentation, we love to hear it. If you're areas that we think we need to focus more on, let us know. We create all of this content based on what you guys ask us that you need. So hopefully we'll see you at another event in the future, and we look forward to working with you. Please, if you need training, consulting, anything, contact us. We'd love to work with you. And at that point, have a great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Heather.